Support for Consider This is provided by the University of Nebraska at Omaha College of Communication, Fine Arts, and Media.
Once again, from the studios of UNO Television on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
I can solve difficult problems for a Fortune 500 company.
I can run a successful business.
I can manage your home improvements.
I can publicize your message.
I can motivate your audience.
I can put my military experience to work for your company.
I can teach your children.
I can boost your bottom line.
I can add value to your workplace.
I could be a loyal and productive employee.
But I can't put my skills to work for your organization
if I'm not given the opportunity.
If you don't recognize my talents and ability.
If you don't hire me.
If you don't have an open mind and a workplace that's open to everyone.
If you don't realize that America works best when everybody works.
What can you do?
What can you do?
What can you do?
You can remember that it worked.
It's what people can do.
It's what people can do that matters.
Nearly 50 million Americans have disabilities. Capitalize on their talents with employment practices that benefit everyone. Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, disability employment. Joining us to talk more about it are Michael Elsken, Staff Attorney for Disability Rights Nebraska, and Elizabeth Pazel, Facilitator for the Nebraska Youth Leadership Council. Elizabeth is with Nebraska VR. Welcome to the two of you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Michael, I'm going to start with you in what would seem to be a loaded question, right? How do you define disability?
Well, disability is defined actually in a multitude of ways. When you're talking about employment and disability, there are a number of fairly typical considerations. Social Security has a definition of disability that goes to the ability of the person to work what they call substantial gainful activity. The Americans with Disabilities Act has a different definition of disability. On the fundamental level, disability is a condition that is not transitory, that impacts a person's ability to function within a workplace. It may be severe, it may be mild, but it does impact.
Okay, and there are types of disabilities, and as you're talking about those, we're going to put those up for our viewers, Michael.
The variety of disabilities are almost as broad as the types of people that have them. Anything from traumatic brain injury to amputations to psychological conditions to things that are not readily apparent. Individuals that have type 2 diabetes may have difficulties with walking or with coordination that are related. You wouldn't know it simply by looking at a person. So the function, how the disability functions, is different from person to person.
Yeah, Elizabeth, give us some examples of how those disabilities do affect individuals.
Sure, yeah. If someone has a disability, two people can have the same diagnosis, but the disabilities will affect them differently. And that's one thing at Nebraska VR that we focus on, is that those individualized disabilities and how it affects them at work. And some of those, if they are hearing impaired, or if they have vision issues, if they have critical thinking issues, movement, mental health, remembering things. If people have experienced a traumatic brain injury, that can definitely affect them on the job, as well as social relationships. If an individual has been diagnosed with autism, when they get on the job, they may not be able to interact with their coworkers as maybe another person would on the job. So all of those things it really depends on the individual and what they've been diagnosed with and what their own personality is, can really impact them.
Michael, leading some people, at least for the purposes of this program, to believe that an individual then becomes unemployable. How do you respond to that?
Nobody, even individuals with what would seem to be traumatic and catastrophic disabilities, nobody is really unemployable. They may never work full time. They may never be able to handle stressors of everyday work or work on a consistent basis. But everybody has, to some degree, the ability to engage in work. The fact is that people with disabilities, they have as much interest in being a part of the community as anybody else, and work is part of being within your community. So no one's really unemployable. It's a question of what the extent of employment possibilities are for them.
And I think, if I can add, I think a lot of that has to do with creativity as well, and what a person's willing to do, the individual, what they're willing to do themselves and what they're open to, and also the employers, what they're open to and willing to do for an individual who wants to work. Because everybody wants to work. Everybody wants a paycheck, everybody wants a job. So it's how creative can you be, who can you partner with to help find that right fit?
And the fact is that with most people, the first question that is asked when you're meeting a person for the first time is, what do you do? Now, most people have a job, so individuals with disabilities face that same question all the time.
Tell us about Disability Rights Nebraska, Michael.
Sure. Disability Rights Nebraska is part of actually a nationwide network of what they call protection and advocacy agencies. The real genesis for the P&A agencies stems from the horrible conditions that were exposed in Bellevue Hospital in New York during the 1970s, where people with developmental disabilities were living in horrific conditions. And Congress stepped in and said, we're going to establish, initially it was just for developmental disabilities, but over the years it has expanded, establish protection and advocacy agencies that are designed to assure that people are not subject to abuse or neglect. But over the years it's expanded so that our agency does work with respect to employment, obviously with respect to assistive technology, making sure that people have access to assistive technology and can use it. We even are involved in work with respect to voting rights. The most recent addition to the spectrum of activities that the P&A agencies, and every state has a P&A. Nebraska is Disability Rights Nebraska, but if you go across the river, there's another one. If you go out to western Nebraska, out west of Gering, you've got Wyoming, they have a P&A also.
Okay. I want to talk for a minute about milestones, because we don't just get here, right? It takes events, circumstances, people to help get us where we are, especially in terms of a topic like this one. So you've done a little bit of going back, Michael, but what would you say are some of the milestones that led us to where we are today in terms of this topic?
Okay, in terms of employment, part of the driving force for disability employment was the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and recognition by Social Security Administration that a lot of people who are on Social Security disability still have an interest in working. but they're afraid of losing their benefits prematurely. So back in 1999, they passed what was called the Ticket to Work and Work Incentives Improvement Act, which created a program, Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security, where our agency helps people who are receiving Social Security benefits in their efforts to return to work or enter the workforce for the first time. We, as an agency, have done a number of individualized matters respect work employment circumstances, and that includes going to school, because getting to work includes training to go to work. We were involved in a rather significant lawsuit which was settled within the past 18 months involving a gentleman who was attending medical school who was hearing impaired and needed reasonable accommodation to be able to attend the school. The school fought him on that. We ended up stepping in and bringing an action and getting that reasonable accommodation for him.
How long have you been with them?
I've been with the agency just over 14 and a half years.
And what brought you there?
Well, I had a private practice before going to work for Nebraska Advocacy Services, which is the older name for Disability Rights Nebraska. My wife developed multiple sclerosis, and trying to carry insurance on my own was not feasible. So I ended up searching for a job and being lucky enough to find a job with Disability Rights Nebraska.
What is the most important thing that people need to know from your perspective, do you think?
With respect to individuals with disabilities and employment, there is a tendency to think that just because an individual has a disability that they can't. And really, it's a matter of changing the mindset and understanding that people can, even though they are limited, even though they may have restrictions that are not their own creation. Those individuals provide an opportunity to employers, to the general public, and to simply lock people with individuals with disabilities out of the employment process is cutting not only that individual out of the system, but it's denying the public and the employer an opportunity that they really don't understand is there.
So of all the years you've been doing this, most meaningful or memorable case that you can remember, Michael?
Well, I think with respect to employment, my personal most memorable matter, our agency, as part of our PABS program, helps people who have alleged overpayments that stem from work activity. Social Security work incentives are very complex. I could spend several shows just on those aspects. This woman received a notice claiming that she had been overpaid by $25,000, which is not an unusual occurrence within the Social Security system, because there's a significant delay between when information becomes available and when Social Security actually processes that. So this woman received a notice of a $25,000 overpayment. Of course, she contacted our office and she was reasonably panicked. By the time we got through, because they suspended her benefits during the process of reviewing this, by the time we got through not only did she not have an overpayment, Social Security had underpaid her by $15,000 because they had suspended the payment. So that was a $40,000 difference for that one individual.
And that's just one
That's
story
just
of
one
how
story.
many, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up, Elizabeth. I'm coming over to you now, right? Nebraska VR. Let's start by just telling our viewers, what is that?
Nebraska VR is a state agency under the Department of Education that focuses on helping individuals with disabilities find employment. So we help individuals with disabilities prepare for, find, and keep employment. But on that same, on the other side of that coin, we help businesses realize that we have qualified candidates, and we will help them recruit, train, and maintain employees, which is a big thing. So we're actually serving two groups here. We're serving individuals with disabilities, but we're finding job matches and working with employers in the community to find qualified candidates. So it's really cool. So we have offices across the entire state, mostly in the bigger cities, but we do serve all the counties surrounding those. So Scottsbluff, Norfolk, Columbus, Omaha, Lincoln, Grand Island, Kearney, North Platte. I don't think I left any out, but those are most of the offices around the state. And they serve the outlying counties as well. So we help individuals prepare for those jobs, find the right jobs if they can or cannot do the job that they came to us, if they had a job when they came to us, and then if they don't have a job, we help find a right match for them given their disability. It's all individualized services.
So what is your biggest referral source? I'm sure you ask everyone who comes through your door, how did you hear about us? And what is the most common response to that?
It really depends. So we serve a lot of students in schools too. We work with high school students, so a lot of times we get referrals from the teachers of the schools that we work with, but also word of mouth. Sometimes people hear about, someone who got a job. Well, how'd you get that job? And then they know a family who needs some help, and so they find out by word of mouth. But we work with a lot of agencies as well. We partner with a lot of agencies who are also disability focused. We talk to therapists, mental health therapists, occupational therapists, so doctors. From all over, we get referrals. So it just really depends on the person, honestly. It's so individualized.
Elizabeth, that's a lot of balls in the air that Nebraska VR is managing, right?
Yes.
And at the core, at the heart of all of that is the individual. So what do you believe to be kind of the secret to your success at Nebraska VR, knowing this population that you're serving, many of whom are coming to you in kind of reactive mode, right? And you're trying to collaborate with all of these different organizations. So how is it that you do that?
Well, we sit down and we first bring someone in and we talk to them about, okay, give me your story. What have you done? What do you want to do? And then gather all that information. We really want to find out about that person. And then there we break it down. We try to meet them where they are. So if they don't have any idea of what they want to do when it comes to employment, we help are there some assessments or some testing we can do to figure that out? Do we need to take you out and talk to some employers or businesses to see, is this a good job match? Are you interested in this field? So it really depends on what they've done and what they want to do, and if it's attainable, their goals are attainable and realistic.
So in the spirit of the topic of employment, who are these people working for Nebraska VR? What are you looking for in the individuals who come knocking on your door to say, hey, I want to be a part of your team, Elizabeth? So what does it take to become a part of that?
To work with VR?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in a traditional sense, we want you to have a bachelor's degree. And if you have a bachelor's degree in counseling or rehab counseling, that is ideal because that's our main focus. We want to rehabilitate the person and get them back to work. Working with individuals, if you've had any experience working with someone with a disability or the disability population, that is perfect. If you are okay talking in groups, getting out, and you're not afraid to speak out and advocate for individuals who need an opportunity. So someone with an outgoing personality but professional. We are also role models for individuals who may have not ever worked before, and they need to see what it takes to actually get a job and keep a job. So there are different roles. There's a placement individuals. There are people who are just straight counselors that work with individuals. We have transition specialists who specifically work with youth in the schools, and then associates who help greet customers and clients when they come into our offices. So a lot of jobs, but you really have to have a passion for working with individuals with disabilities and really helping them succeed.
Yeah, Michael, I saw you smiling. You have to be out in the community quite a bit because oftentimes these folks don't know where to start. You know, how many times have you heard, I didn't know you guys existed. I wish I'd have met you 20 years ago, whatever the case may be. So talk about the importance of that community awareness piece.
Well, you know, when I first started working for Disability Rights Nebraska, when I was applying for the position, I had no idea that it existed. This is an agency that's been in existence since 1975. And has been active throughout the state. We've got an office here in Lincoln. We've opened up an office in Scottsbluff. We cover every county in this state. And the fact is that people don't know the resources that are there, and if you don't know, you're not going to access them. So part of what we do is try to let people know we're out there. Part of what goes on for individuals with employment-related aspects, VR is a great resource. We feed to them, they feed to us in terms of individuals that may need assistance. Schools, the federal government has recently adopted the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, which is establishing a bigger link between schools and VR, and we work with schools on issues relating to transition. The fact is that preparing for employment starts before you're even out of high school. Right. So it's a big linkage for, and then there are organizations that work with schools, Parent-to-Parent, PTI Nebraska, all sorts of entities that we feed to each other. And sometimes we scratch our heads and say, we're not sure. There's a lot of stuff out there these days with employment that really relates to AT, assistive technology. People who need to watch their medication schedule, so they're walking around with an alarm system on their cell phones to go off to remind them to take meds. And so some of it is just understanding that there's a big pool and there are times when we feed to each other.
And I think it's okay to say that we don't know what we don't know. We're learning too from the people who walk through, through the doors as well. And Elizabeth, it has to be a collaborative because these are sometimes very complicated situations. In the minutes that we have remaining, I just want you to put a face on what it is that you're doing there, either with someone who's coming to you for the first time, who may have a disability, to someone who, tragedy struck and now they're trying to regroup in their life. So put a face to this for us.
I can speak to a couple examples. So my background, I worked as a placement person when I first came on to Nebraska VR, and then a counselor, and now my role with NYLC, which is working with youth. But when I was doing placement, I actually was out there talking to businesses and working with individuals who were looking for a job. And I had an individual who was young and she didn't have a degree, and she got a job with a customer service company here in town, and she was doing great, but she wasn't meeting her quotas because she had a specific learning disability. And so when she had to look up names like towns and cities and states she's not familiar with, that she didn't know how to spell those states. So one thing we did is I went through and I printed out all the names of the cities in whatever state and we made a flip chart. And so when it came to someone was calling in, she needed to find that quick, she went to that state and could scroll down and find that and how to spell it. So that saved her job, just something easy like that, those are a lot of the cases that we work with, people who can do a job, they just may need a little help or do it differently than someone else. I also worked with an individual who had a very long history in the industry of auto. He did a very physical job in the auto industry and could no longer do that. He had a spinal injury, and he had to have metal plates put in, or in his vertebra, and couldn't do that anymore. He couldn't do a physical job. So he actually ended up getting a job in the auto industry, but in a sales department with a dealership. So he was able to use his knowledge that he had about the auto industry that he had done forever, and still get a good paycheck. But he was just doing a different job because he could no longer do his job before. So he was able to go on and work full time. So people come to us for different reasons, but that's why Nebraska VR has such individualized services, because nobody is the same. No one has the same background, and no one wants the same things. Everybody has different goals and has different things they want to do in their everyday life, just like us,
So this is Disability Employment Month, and so we have like a minute here. I know you're doing some things at Nebraska VR. What are you doing?
There are quite a few things going on. I specifically want to mention that for October, which is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, we are featured in the Strictly Business magazine with Omaha and Lincoln, with the Partners for the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, as well as the Blind and Visually Impaired. So that's in there, which is really exciting. Omaha, they are doing some interviews for job seekers with Nebraska VR with real employers that are going to go out and prep these individuals who are looking for jobs. And then also in Lincoln, there's a business forum for businesses in Lincoln who want to come. All that information is on our website if they want to register. It's all about inclusion and working and hiring people with disabilities. So that's going on. So if you have questions, there's a local office in your area probably. You can look on our website. There's also an employment series of videos that we're doing as well. We have, I think, 4 released right now. So that's on vr.nebraska.gov/videos if you're interested in checking those out.
And Michael, for the record, they're also serving people at the same time. So what a great, as if you're not busy enough, right? No, congratulations on all of that. You mentioned websites. I want to take this opportunity to put those up for viewers in the event that they would have more questions. So we have 2 here, Disability Rights Nebraska, and that is simply disabilityrightsnebraska.org, Nebraska VR, which is vr.nebraska.gov. Elizabeth, Michael, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your time and expertise and the stories. That really does get to the heart of the matter, especially about what we're talking about today. So thank you and best wishes to you both.
Thank you very much.
You bet. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or email us at considerthis@tvmail.unomaha.edu.